Right, we're looking at some specific data sets on TET, which is the Transparency-Enhancing Toolset of the route to PA. So the first one we're going to look at, if we're just going to type in Dublin purchases, and what this is going to do is, hopefully if it works, which it should do, it's going to bring up a number. It's brought up 4 results. So there's 4 different data sets which relate to that particular search. So what we're going to have a look at now is just the filtering side of it. We can filter by location, we can filter by period, we can filter by themes or filter by format. And as you can see, it depends on which particular aspect you choose. It'll show up just the number of data sets which is indicated by a number beside the particular issue. For example, transport, there's only one data set relating to transport under this theme of Dublin purchases. So we'll select one data set in particular, and we click here on local government and then Dublin City Council prompt payments, because obviously prompt payments are something that we're all very much in favour of. So that data set will then appear, and it'll appear in a way that we can actually see it. When we come into the Dublin City Council prompt payments screen, this is the actual data set itself, we see an immediate graph which is produced from the actual data, and this would include a number of different vendors, Electricity Limited, for example, being the largest, and it goes down through RPS and so on. And if we highlight these, it can actually show us the number of units relating to electricity, for example, would be 18. That's the number of records relating to electricity in this particular data set. Okay, so if we move down, what we have is we have a description of the data set. It tells us that local government financial reporting prompt payment schedule for Dublin City Council, and gives us other information. Obviously this information can be quite extensive. Below that we have metadata for the data set, and this again can be quite extensive, and it shows us actual metadata descriptions of the data, of the actual data in the data set. Below that we have files, CSV files. It tells us, the system tells us the type of file. So for example, it would differentiate between CSV, which is comma separated values, and XLS, which is a sort of spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet data. Also we have available views. We had a look at the tabular format. We can view as PDF, or indeed we can view as an app, but that's not available at the moment. Now, what we can also do is discuss this socially using the social platform, which is part of the Route to PA set of tools as well. So if we click on the Start to Discussion link, we'll find that that brings us directly into SPOD. And what that is actually is the social platform. So it acts as a sort of chat room. It allows us to discuss the data set. And as you see here, there's already quite a number of discussions on that particular data set. So we can actually enter the chat room and enter our own comments and our own issues in that particular platform. We're not going to focus on that right now. We're going to go back to the data set itself within TET. And if we click on the actual tabular format, what that will actually show us is the raw data in, I suppose, a spreadsheet format. And again, we can look at the the data. We can drag it out so that we can see the data directly. There's 336 records in total in this particular data set. If we want to look at the actual pivot table in relation to the data set, it can show us the data in a much more user-friendly format than simply showing us the raw data in spreadsheet format. So if we take the vendor name, for example, what this actually shows us is the number of items per vendor which are held in that data set. So we see the biggest one that's obvious there would be Crosby Construction Limited, which has 10 values altogether, but the values are held on the right hand side. So if we want to see the sum of money relating, the paid amount relating to each of the individual vendors, we can do that quite easily, just a couple of clicks. And we'll notice there, if we just stop on the figure of 1.3 million, and if we put it into a heat map format, we'll see that Investec Bank PLC is the largest specific amount relating to any of the vendors. So heat map functionality is pretty good because it shows us, it allows us to see I suppose the exceptions, the highest and the lowest amounts. The lowest amounts obviously will be in a white format, and the highest amounts are highlighted in red. So if we want to see this in a different format, if we want to get more creative about it, we can use, for example, item description, and we could look at what the highest item there, and we'll see it is construction of housing, which is over 3 million in total, and that's quite a large amount of expenditure in relation to housing. So if we drag the vendor name into the spreadsheet as well, we'll see that we can see, for example, by construction of housing, we can see the individual vendors relating to construction of housing. And as you see, the heat map shows us that BAM Civil Limited is the one to which the highest total was paid. And I think the lowest total that's paid was Townlink Construction Limited at the bottom. So one is 78,000, and the highest is 10 times that amount, BAM Civil, which is 873,000. We'll have a look at the bar chart aspect, and what this actually shows us is the sum paid amount by item description, and it gives us the I suppose the ones which have the highest amount and the lowest amount. Now we can filter these out if we wish by clicking on individual ones. So for example, if we wanted to get rid of waste disposal, we can click on that one. Or if we want to do refurbishment of roof, we can click on that one, and it'll highlight the individual one. So it's fairly flexible in terms of actually visualizing the the data set. Right. We're also going to look at a separate data set, which is election candidates. And if we type that in, this is one we prepared earlier, as they say, we'll click the search button, and we will hope that we'll see a number of data sets relating to election candidates, and indeed two come up. So we're going to look for candidates for the 2004 to 2009 local elections. And when we click on that, the same sort of filter issues obviously apply to that. We have different ones depending on the specific data set. But we'd like to see that, for example, in a graphical form immediately. And in relation to that, an interesting aspect of this one for this data set would be the number of candidates in the, for each particular individual party during the local elections. And as we see, we have Fianna Fáil, Labour, non-party, Fine Gael, Sinn Féin, all the way down to the Workers' Party, so highest to lowest in terms of that particular data set. Right, so if we have a look at the data set, if we want to view it as a table, again we click on the icon, the table icon, and this will bring up the data set so that we can actually have a look at the data itself, the raw data that is. So again, it's in the sort of standard, I suppose, spreadsheet type of format. And again, if you wish to extend the size of a particular field, it's very easy to do so just by dragging it along. It'll allow us, for example, to look at the full address rather than just looking at a few dots. Again, with the party, you can increase the size of the party and so on to give you a better view of that. So if we want to again look at the pivot table, we can choose individual aspects. For example, if we want to look by party, we simply drag and drop the party, and this will show us the actual number of candidates per party. So, for example, in that particular area, there would be 18 Fine Gael candidates, there would be 14 Sinn Féin candidates and so on. So if we put the local election area there, we can actually see them broken down by specific local election area and by party. So we can see, for example, that if we look in the Artane area, there were 2 Sinn Féin candidates, 3 for the Labour Party, 1 for the People Before Profit Alliance and 2 for Fine Gael, giving a total of 8. So that sort of information is quite easy to use, and we can select and manipulate the data simply by clicking and dragging and dropping, but very quickly and in a very simple and easy way to use. Moving on to another type of visualization, we can see count the local electoral area by party. So we'll see, for example, here we can highlight the Labour Party and to show the number of candidates they had in each election area. So if we actually point to a specific point on the graph itself, we can see the number of candidates in that particular area. For example, here the Labour Party had 2 in the Crumlin-Kimmage area, and Fine Gael had 1, Sinn Féin had 1, the Green Party had 1, People Before Profit Alliance had 1, and the bottom one is the Christian Solidarity Party, who had 1 candidate as well.